get out of it. I'm trying to make it big again.
We're very, very
okay.
adept.
So let's get started.
Okay, perfect. Great.
So if you go, hi everybody. I'm Evan Queler, and this is David Quartell. And we wanted to speak with you today about answer any of your questions that you might have, but also speak with you about 8 foods that can not only help you burn belly fat, but cool inflammation. And so if you were to go to the next slide, Dave. So one of the things here of an approach for that is really looking at whole foods like beans, berries, other fruits, cruciferous vegetables, greens, other vegetables, nuts and seeds, spices, and whole grains. These are all green light foods, and they all contribute to helping the body cool down inflammation and burn belly fat.
Vegetables, fruits, whole grains, beans, mushrooms, nuts, seeds, herbs, and spices.
So, Dave, did you have anything that you wanted to share?
No, just that that most of these foods here you use the term G bombs. I don't know if we're going to be hitting that at some point, but greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds are in here, and they're just foods that look like they did when they grew out of the ground or off of a tree. Go here. So this is a slide that we actually borrowed from somebody else that really just speaks about unprocessed plant foods, and that's the main goal for the direction that we take when we're talking about foods that get rid of inflammation and foods that help to burn belly fat, because of the studies that have been done. So if you see here these 5 pillars, we don't just look at something that there was one study done one time, but it was juventology, basic research, epidemiology, clinical studies, centenarian studies, and the study of complex systems. So we're looking at older people, younger people, how communities go through time, and then studying in labs. And all of this points to the use of unprocessed plant foods as primarily the ones that deliver the effectiveness of reducing belly fat.
The best balance of evidence, so there's like a 5-pillar approach. It's not just looking at one mechanistic, study, but essentially, we wanted to convey the point that you have fruits, you have vegetables, you have whole grains, you have pulses or legumes, nuts and seeds, you have nuts and seeds, herbs and spices. And that ends up, adding up to these 8 foods or 8 food, groups. The beans, the berries, or the beans, the fruits, the vegetables, because berries is a form of a fruit, cruciferous vegetables and greens and other vegetables, all in the category of vegetables, but all of them they're all important. Like cruciferous vegetables are so powerful and effective that one should try and aim to incorporate them into their daily dietary routine, and the same thing with greens. They're under the umbrella or category of vegetables, but they happen to provide so many nutrients, so many metabolic health promoting medicinal compounds, as well as, providing the fiber that feeds our microbiome, which is involved with our immune system, our endocrine system, how we feel hungry and our cravings, and our basal metabolic rate, meaning just at rest, like what our metabolism is all intertwined with the fuel that we put into our body. And one of the categories of food, one of the components of food that is ubiquitous throughout all of plants is fiber. And there's all different forms of fiber, but when our gut metabolizes it and breaks it down, it releases compounds through their metabolism that our bodies use. One of them is discussed quite a bit as small chain fatty acids, which is butyrate, and that has an effect on our response to insulin, how well we sleep, our metabolism. So cruciferous vegetables, greens, or non-starchy vegetables like cucumbers and celery and tomatoes and squash are all very high in water, and very high in fiber and very high in nutrients. And flax seeds are in that category of nuts and seeds. But they've been so well researched that they have anti-cancer, anti-dementia, anti-diabetes, anti-high blood pressure, promoting healthy weight loss, boosting your metabolism, feeding the microbiome, all with flax seeds. But amongst other nuts and seeds, seeds like sesame seeds have been studied and could help decrease inflammation to help with osteoporosis. Nuts, when they're in their raw form, when they're roasted and salted and oiled and sugared, you end up kind of making them less healthful and adding processed components to it that promote inflammation. And also, when you heat up nuts, you combine the fat and the protein and you change the structure of it. It's been processed. Heating it is a form of processing it. But nuts in their raw form, again, like walnuts, pumpkin seeds, help fight prostate cancer, help fight other forms of cancer, help prevent the spread of metastatic cancers. And then you go down the list of spices. Turmeric is one spice that is like a golden spice, fights inflammation, decreases pain, helps you lose weight as well. And then the same thing with like whole grains. So all of them kind of check the list. What were you going to say, Dave? I was done with my diatribe.
That's okay. It was good. With nuts, so a lot of times I'll get questions from patients like all the time about like, oh my gosh, well, what nuts are raw? I can't get this nut raw. I can't get that. There are certain things that you can find that are generally raw all the time, and certain things that are difficult to find raw, like cashews and almonds. Most times when you buy them, they're going to be not raw, like they're going to be processed to some degree. Most seeds, flax seeds, hemp seeds, chia seeds, those are generally raw. When you get walnuts, those are generally raw. So if you're looking like, oh my gosh, I don't know which one to do. Now, I don't like walnuts as much as I like cashews, particularly if the cashew is coated in sugar and spices. But if I'm trying to eat healthfully, I'm going to move toward those foods that are easier to find. And we're listing a bunch of things that are really helpful for you, but always gear your choices toward things that are easy and convenient. If you have the flax seeds, a challenge that I found is when I buy bulk flax seeds, it's already ground up, it goes rancid fairly rapidly. Even if it's in the fridge, it goes rancid quickly. I get my flax seeds whole. I have a small coffee grinder, the flax seed, and boom, it's processable. And then you just add it to things. You don't even notice that you're adding it. And this is one thing that's really very, very good as an anti-inflammatory and helps burn belly fat, is adding a nut and a seed in every single day to your diet.
So exercise, sleeping, being in the unfed, calorie restricted, fasted state, and certain phytonutrients and certain compounds that are released from the microbiome are all involved with turning on these genetic pathways, turning on these switches, these biochemical pathways that stimulate compounds for our body to fight off these oxidative, that have our own antioxidants. So it doesn't seem like taking vitamin C in and taking in glutathione really is the best way to do it. It's when we feed and nourish our bodies are able to produce these compounds and produce our own glutathione, for example, to fight off and neutralize these oxidative species that, when they're running havoc, they could damage our DNA and they could accelerate our aging and make us look wrinkly. And that's like the sun can do that. Smoking can do that.
Tony asked a question about eating nuts and that he's eating them raw, but would certainly like to add salt to the nuts. And we tend to shy away from adding salt to foods for a couple of reasons. One is that we don't have an ability to process a ton of salt in the gut in a way that helps to preserve the microbiome. If you want to preserve meats or preserve foodstuffs, we'll tend to heavily salt them to disrupt any sort of bacterial activity that might occur. And by increasing our salt intake, it can disrupt the gut. With that being said, there are many people that can tolerate a ton of salt, but it's really easy to go over your salt limit. So with regard to sea salt is great. You know, if you're going to use salt, sea salt is probably arguably more mineral dense than non-sea salt, but still it's the salt is tough on the body. You know, we try to say, you know, limit your salt intake to, you know, a couple grams a day. You know, a good rule of thumb is when you look at something in a package, if it has more milligrams of salt than it does per calorie serving, you're probably eating too much salt in that packaged food. Although with that being said, it is delicious. And, you know, I do like to, I like salt as well, but we do try to limit it.
Yeah. So with the salt, like typically when it's salted, it's not raw, it's then roasted. So then you have these advanced glycolytic end products, these ages that form. You also then end up having passive overeating, which is why salt is added to a lot of foods, because it makes us passively overeat. So you end up consuming these calorie dense foods that like nuts in excess than you otherwise would, as opposed to adding the raw nuts, let's say, to a salad. You have something that's very dense in calories, like the nuts, and you add them to the salad and the greens. You add not only some flavor and palatability with the fat from the nuts, you are then also helping increase some of the absorption of some of the fat soluble vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients, plant nutrients that are in the vegetables. So combine, and then you also dilute like the calories, you know, and so it helps promote your health, and then also a healthy body weight without the restriction. But the salt, excess salt, you know, can you know, disrupt the gut lining. Salt is used to, right, when we cure meats, it's killing the bacteria. That has a similar effect on the body. You have all the salt that you do need in whole foods. There is sodium there. You have all the electrolytes from that standpoint. And there are, you know, associations of metabolic syndromes, of high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, increasing the risk of cardiovascular events with excess salt intake. Processed foods are ubiquitous all around us. And when we say processed foods, there's salt in a lot of them. We're getting enough salt. And so it does take time for your taste buds to adjust, which is one of the reasons why, like, doing something like a 5-day, you know, Dr. Q fast, like, kind of helps reset your taste buds, and it could take up to 30 days. And one of the ways to bypass it. So, and also with sea salt, you're not getting the iodine, which is one of the reasons why they've iodized table salt, because it's something that's found in seaweed. It's not necessarily readily available in our diet. So to prevent iodine deficiencies, there's some iodide added to salt. That's not in sea salt. If you wanted to add some salt to flavors as your palate is adjusting, you can just sprinkle a little bit of salt on at the end, as opposed to in the beginning of a meal.
Let's talk a little bit about beans. Beans are a tremendously valuable food source or calorie source for human beings. One of the biggest things that we see, you know, people that press back, like, oh, if I eat so many vegetables, where do I get my protein from? Just know that there's protein in almost every single vegetable and food that you can eat that's whole food, you know, plant-based. I mean, I'm sure we can, you know, argue about how much protein is in, but we don't see protein deficiency in the United States among most healthy people. However, that being said, beans are a great go-to for us.
Yeah, I think I think it says it here succinctly. You want to have it in your you want to have it ingrained into your diet on the daily. And when you look at the research behind it, the American Institute for Cancer Research, it had 21 top cancer researchers all agree that not only should whole grains be eaten with every meal, but beans should be eaten with every meal, and not weekly or daily, but every meal. That you have that it's a superfood. It helps you live longer, and in all of the longest living populations, they all consume beans. So the science and real life populations are all consuming beans, and it helps promote the burning of belly fat and cooling down inflammation.
Yeah, and and a lot of these too. I'm gonna relate a quick story. Something happened to me over the weekend with a friend of mine, and we were talking about eating and stuff, and she got upset. She was like, "Look, I'm really upset that you pushed me so much toward eating fiber, because now when I don't eat fiber, I'm not as regular. My gut doesn't feel as good. I can't take poops like I do when I'm eating my regular fiber. And now I feel like I'm addicted to fiber." And I was like, "Well, how were your poops and how was your stomach before you ate the fiber?" She was like, "It was terrible." So I asked her again. I'm like, "So when you stop eating the fiber, it's not like you became addicted. Your stomach just went back to the bad way it was before, right?" She said, "Yeah." So my response to this was like, "Well, I didn't make you addicted to fiber. It's just now you're giving your body that fuel, that need, that source of gut health that's required to make the gut work properly." And when we talk about these foods that reduce inflammation, and I'm putting them in quotes, these foods don't necessarily reduce inflammation. They're just non-inflammatory for most people's systems, whereas the foods that we eat are highly inflammatory. And when I say foods that we eat, processed foods. And by exchanging these healthier foods, these beans, these vegetables, these fruits, for the inflammatory foods, these foods are we consider them anti-inflammatory, but they're not truly anti-inflammatory. They're just non-inflammatory promoting foods. And when you get rid of the inflammatory promoting foods by replacing them with these non-inflammatory, the body de-inflames. And one of these foods that's really essential are the beans, because they have the fiber, they have the protein in them that everybody's looking to have, and they're quite filling and they're delicious. I typically recommend, we have down here a cup of peas. I keep frozen peas in the freezer. Well, it's where you keep frozen stuff in the freezer. But almost every meal I make, I open up, I pour some peas in, and I close it up. And this way, I'm forcing myself to eat tons of peas with everything, or any other food you want to eat.
And then hummus, is made out of chickpeas. Those are beans. And taking some hummus, mixing it in with some more lemon, maybe with some more vinegar, maybe some other herbs and spices, are a way to kind of like make a dressing. So you could have your greens, your salad greens, your spinach, your spring mix, and mixing it with some hummus, and to thin it out with some vinegar and with some lemon or lime, and adding some herbs and spices, and then putting in some olives for your salt, or putting in some kimchi for your probiotics, but that also has some salt in it. And then your raw nuts, and then your raw pumpkin seeds or sesame seeds or flax seeds. And you have a salad that is kind of combining, it's almost like a bowl. You're combining all these different foods that work together with, while providing satiety, enjoyment, and promoting your health, and you feel good.
I'm going to go to this slide here, just the berries, which are really important to have every day.
Right. So then you could throw some berries on there too. And frozen berries are a great way to go. And you defrost some frozen berries. And when they're frozen, they are picked at ripeness and then frozen, as opposed to when they're sending them fresh in the plastic containers, they can't pick them when they're super ripe, because then they'll be rotten. What they do is they pick them a little bit raw, spray them with ethylene oxide to ripen them on the truck ride or flight, to your grocery store. So if you actually get them organic and frozen, you're getting them picked to ripeness. So then there's even more nutrients in them, and then flash frozen. So sometimes frozen can be better. And when they defrost, it could be a nice snack with the berries and strawberries and blueberries. They defrost into a compote, there's a little bit of the juice with some of the nuts, and you put that on top of your greens, and boom, again, you're combining these foods that are promoting your health. Dave, I wanted to know if there was maybe some questions that we could maybe answer if people wanted to type them in, or ask them. You have access to unmute yourself.
Here's one about turmeric to the diet. Which foods does it work well with?
Where's that?
In the chat, David Moak asked it, adding turmeric to the diet, which foods work really well. Generally speaking, if you like curry type foods, every food works, and turmeric is generally found in curry. If you can add some black pepper to the turmeric, it seems to make it much more bioavailable, which is great. But I add turmeric in the form of curry powder to almost everything that I'm cooking. I add it to my vegetables. I just made some black bean burgers before we got on the call today. Put them in the freezer. I add turmeric to that. I just drank a smoothie. I don't know if anybody can see, but my smoothie is some berries and some supplements that I put in there. And one of the things, like, I put in a scoop of turmeric, and I add the turmeric to that. So you can add, it's a flavor, and if you like the flavor of it, you can add it to everything. If you don't like the flavor of it, take it as a pill or a capsule. There are even some gummies now. Qunol, Qunol, I think is the name of the company, makes even a turmeric gummy that I've had. I don't use those. Not because
I don't really recommend those either.
No, but if you're not getting any, and you're like, I need to get some, take a supplement. But it's fine in any sort of foods.
And even when supplementing it, I kind of recommend, getting the whole turmeric form. Usually they have the whole turmeric root, and then there's some of the concentrate. But curcumin, where they're concentrating it into curcumin, but I would suggest getting the whole turmeric root, and then it has maybe some of the concentrate with some of the bioprene, which is the black pepper. But you could put it into smoothies. You could make a latte with, some with a green tea with a little bit of turmeric powder and a nut milk. I like the Elmhurst cashew milk, which is unsweetened, it's just cashews and water, and it has a creamy taste. You can add that to a turmeric to make a golden latte. But adding, like, finding some different curries, and there's all different kinds of curries. They'll combine all these different spices, and turmeric will be one of them. And adding them to salad dressings, adding them to just different foods, you end up kind of experimenting and exploring and adding spice to your life, pun intended, with the foods, but also they're the most concentrated antioxidants and phytonutrients in these herbs and spices. Oregano, rosemary, ginger, turmeric, oregano are some of the power hitters. But cinnamon, there's Ceylon cinnamon and Saigon cinnamon. The Ceylon, Ceylon, is perhaps more cinnamon flavor, and it doesn't have as much of the curcuminoids that's in that is stressful on the liver, as opposed to, so you want to perhaps get that kind as opposed to the Saigon cinnamon, Saigon, that has a little bit more of their curcuminoids in it. That's a little bit more stressful on the liver. All right, so let's move on to any other questions. That's it. So there was a question about how is fruit fresher than unfrozen. So just to reiterate that again, when they pick fruit when it's ripe off of the tree, and then we're not to freeze that, it'll get rotten by the time it goes to the shelf. So they're able to let fruit ripen and absorb more of the nutrients, and then freeze it, and then it has a longer shelf life. So that's how frozen fruit can be quote unquote fresher than fresh unfrozen fruit. And same thing even with the vegetables too. Frozen vegetables, are also picked to ripeness and then flash frozen. And so there's a lot of health benefit to frozen vegetables as well. And it makes it convenient to kind of add to dishes.
The cruciferous vegetables here is another one that we talked about being really great anti-inflammatory for the body. And again, anti-inflammatory, it's just not inflaming like the process, but we really recommend eating a tremendous number of cruciferous vegetables on a regular basis. And whether it's in your salad as like the baby kale, or as broccoli, or anything that you can do to keep that in your diet. Again, it's a great opportunity to buy some frozen broccoli, keep it in the freezer, and then take it out, steam it, and then eat some and leave it in the fridge. And just always have it there. And if you go to the fridge, like, oh my gosh, I'm opening the fridge, I'm hungry, let me grab something, take out the broccoli that you have, eat 2 or 3 stalks and put it back, but continuously make it easy and convenient to get a cruciferous vegetable into your diet every single day. I'm mentioning broccoli because that's the one that most people, eat quite a bit of. There are other cruciferous vegetables that aren't on here. Bok choy is on here, Brussels sprouts. Oh, these aren't on here, but these are other good ones too. But make it easy and convenient to get in your cruciferous vegetables every single day.
Yeah, two things I could think of is shredded red cabbage. It's crunchy, purple, makes the food look good and taste good, and it even works on like something like oatmeal. And then the other one is our broccoli sprouts or other kind of sprouts, and that's a way without getting any. You could use mason jars and make them. And broccoli sprouts have like 100 times this, like the sulforaphane, which is like this anti-carcinogenic compound that's in broccoli. But chopped kale, like making bowls, are a great way to add cruciferous vegetables to your diet.
Right.
We have just 4 minutes left on the Zoom. So I just wanted to, answer any questions that we might have missed. If anyone wanted to, let's see here, ask any questions or go live with their voice. But I don't see any questions. We could also provide, if you were interested, just like the masterclass for free, where we have the videos for you to review on your own, and the 1 month, tasks to kind of help you, optimize your health and incorporate some of these healthy habits, and kind of study some of these slides and information that we have. But we'd be glad to, share that link with you if you were interested. And we can send that to you, just a free access to the masterclass for a month, to learn about this information and apply some of these exercises.
We're going over now, plus some other, quite a number of other things on there. It's a really dynamite way to learn a little bit more on your own free time.
Oh, so we had a question. So like the top 8 foods are the ones that we've been discussing, like the fruits, the vegetables, the whole grains, the legumes, the nuts and seeds, the herbs and spices, right? So, the nuts and seeds was 2, and herbs and spices was 2. Those were like the 8. So that's what we were getting for. You should not be concerned about cruciferous vegetables and hypothyroidism. That is not you're not going to affect your thyroid because of the anti-thyroid compounds in broccoli. So you should continue with your hypothyroid medication treatment and the dosaging, and eat these foods that are fighting breast cancer and ovarian cancer, and promoting healthy weight loss, and burning belly fat and putting you at an ideal body weight and fighting inflammation. So you shouldn't avoid cruciferous vegetables because of some of that internet hype and misinformation.
Right.
We got 1.5 minutes left. Yeah.
I just want to, if you look at the screen here, you can see that there are various colors of fruits and vegetables on here and foods, even the spices. The coloring is quite important to understand because when foods have different colors, particularly the darker the color, the higher the antioxidant content. Generally speaking, it's not across the board with everything, but try and eat those foods that are darker. Try and eat those foods that are different colors from what you would normally eat. And the wider variety of foods you have, the more of an ability to deliver, healthy, health promoting factors into your body.
All right, so we have less than a minute. Thank you all so much. Again, we'd be glad to send everyone the master class if you're interested in that. And we plan on doing this again. This was the first time that we've done this. I'll give my computer security access so I can share my screen next time. I'd have to close the page to make that happen. Thank you all so much. Thanks all for joining. It was about 13 people, so it's really exciting for us. And appreciate the engagement and questions.
Thank you both.
Have a great day. Our pleasure.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.